It's an interesting time for business. Tariff and trade policies are dynamic, supply chains are squeezed, and cash flow, it's tighter than ever. If your business can't adapt in real time, you are in a little bit of hurt. So how do you get full visibility and adapt in real time? Over 42,000 businesses trust NetSuite by Oracle, your AI-powered business management suite. It brings accounting, financial management, inventory, and HR all under one roof. NetSuite is the #1 cloud ERP for a reason. It's your single source of truth, giving you the data and control you need to move quickly. Real-time forecasting helps you move into the future with confidence, and with AI built in, you can automate the busy work and focus on strategy. NetSuite helps you see what's stuck, what it's costing you, and how to pivot fast. If I were running a business with a lot of moving parts, I'd use NetSuite for full control over everything. Tame the chaos with NetSuite. If your revenues are at least in the 7 figures, download the free ebook, Navigating Global Trade, 3 Insights for Leaders at netsuite.com/SPI. That's netsuite.com/SPI. You spent months building towards launch day, but when the clock hits 0, your site crashes. Bots swarm, and loyal fans rage on Reddit. That's not good. Fanfare was built to stop that. Fanfare is the drop platform made for high-pressure moments, stampede-proof infrastructure, verified waitlists, and bot filters that actually work. Instead of refunds and rage, you get retention and revenue. And that sounds great to me. Your next launch shouldn't be a gamble. Get Fanfare's 5-step hype drop playbook and learn how to bulletproof your drop at fanfare.io/playbook. Again, that's fanfare.io/playbook.
We tell everyone, like, once you apply, like, you're committed essentially, and then you submit your payment info as part of the application. They don't get charged as part of the application, but we make it very clear that once they get accepted, that day they get charged. And the thing is, like, we want people who are committed, right? So that helps us just like suss out people who are serious versus like, oh, maybe I want to try it out. It's like the application in itself actually takes quite a time to fill out. And also sometimes people will not submit payment. And I'd say 80% or 90% of the people who don't submit payment are also the people who will never submit payment.
Today's guest accidentally built an incredibly successful community. And this is a really amazing story because it really shows that any of us can step up and create a community that not only generates revenue in our business, but helps a load of people too. And today, we're talking with Gesche Haas, who is the founder of Dreamers and Doers at dreamersdoers.com. And her community, the way it started it and the way she manages it, the way she prices it, the way she lets people in, onboarding, everything, she spills it for us today. And it's awesome because I got inspired by this. In fact, we at SPI are all about community. And so to have Gesche on to tell us about hers is amazing. In fact, I found her on the Circle page. We are big fans of Circle. We use Circle for SPI Pro and inside of our All Access Pass. And I saw Gesche as a testimonial on the Circle page and did a little research. And I was like, wow, this woman is absolutely impressive. I got to get her on the show. And she was happy to join us. So without further ado, here is Gesche Haas. You can find her at dreamersdoers.com. You're going to love this. This is awesome.
You're listening to the Smart Passive Income Podcast, a proud member of the Entrepreneur Podcast Network, a show that's all about working hard now so you can sit back and reap the benefits later. And now your host. He makes a mean Instant Pot Hawaiian Kahlua pork, Pat Flynn.
Running a business means legal questions are inevitable. Is this contract or agreement solid? What can I do if a client won't pay me? Am I set up properly for taxes? Well, rather than trying to navigate all of this on your own or searching endlessly online, imagine having a law firm on your side without the high hourly rates. That's exactly what Legal Shield's small business plans offer. With Legal Shield, entrepreneurs get access to real legal support, contract reviews, collection letters, guidance on business formation, and even help handling IRS audits. Members can book consultations, upload documents through the app, and work with a provider law firm that understands small business laws in your state. You also get proactive help on tax and trademark questions so you can stay ahead of legal risks. And if a client delays payment, Legal Shield can send professional collection letters to help you recover what you're owed, all for a fraction of what traditional attorneys charge. Go to LegalShield.com/SPI or call 833-570-9980 to learn more and get big business legal support without a big business budget. That's LegalShield.com/SPI. Still using a copy-paste website? Break the template trap with Framer. Whether you're overwhelmed by traditional site builders or frustrated with cookie-cutter designs, Framer gives you the freedom to create a site that's professional, polished, and uniquely yours. Framer is the design-first, no-code website builder that lets anyone ship a production-ready site in minutes. It's free to start, allowing you to browse hundreds of pixel-perfect templates or even design something on your own on a totally blank canvas. Add bold animations like appear effects, text effects, parallax scrolling, scroll animations, looping animations, and much more in seconds. The built-in AI handles the heavy lifting, generating starter layouts, and can even translate your entire site to any language. Ready to build a site that looks hand-coded without hiring a developer? Launch your site for free at framer.com and use code SPI to get your first month of Pro on the house. That's framer.com, promo code SPI. Framer.com, promo code SPI. Rules and restrictions may apply. Gesche, welcome to the Smart Passive Income Podcast. Thank you so much for joining me today.
I'm so excited to be here.
I'm excited that you're here too. I know that you have an incredible story as far as your upbringing and that having a very big impact on what you do now. So why don't we start there? Tell us about your upbringing and how that molded you into who you are today.
Yes. So I was born in the kingdom of Swaziland, which is now called Eswatini. So I was born in Africa. My dad did development aid for the German government, so we moved around a lot. But so that's where my journey began. Then I moved from Africa to Germany to Malaysia, to Singapore, to Germany, to Beijing, to Hong Kong, New York, and now out of all places, Wyoming. And I'm half German and half Chinese Malaysian in addition to that.
Wow. That's a lot of places. I mean, those are places I want to visit one day. And how like at what age had you visited like that many countries? I'm trying to get because I just lived in two locations when I was like up until I left for college. So that's all I knew. I'm curious, like how many countries did you visit at a young age, and like what did that do to you as a person? How did you find that? Was it easy? Was it hard? Was it interesting?
So a lot of these countries and a lot of these moves happened before I was a full adult. So we would move every 2 to 4 years. So that's all I knew. Constant change, constant moving. And then even while we lived abroad, we would travel a lot. So we explored a lot of countries within Asia. And I think for me, that was just like change went by. Seeing people who are so different was just the default. And I think it's shaped me in the way that I just perceive a lot of realities that I see that there's so much possible, in the sense that I think that that's what shaped me as a founder. Like if I see that something isn't working out for me, I think that things can be different because I've seen so many different scenarios. That's literally like what my upbringing was. And also relating to other people, I think I can relate to a very wide range of people. But everything also has a flip side. So for better or worse, I try to not judge myself for that, but I feel like I'm better at making quick friends, but I'm not so great at staying in touch or going super deep sometimes, because I was just always so used to ever-changing environments and ever-changing friends.
That makes sense. And that's interesting because as a founder, that's definitely an amazing characteristic to have, is just the ability to adapt quickly and to learn about people really fast so that you can create for them. But now you have this incredible community with like 30,000 women all over the world who stay connected now for long term with you. And I'm curious, like, how did you make the shift into the digital world of community? I just find it so fascinating because it's like in real life, you were spread out and you were across all these different places, but now here you are in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and now you have this community that you're now attracting people to this one spot that you've created. What was your journey like into the digital space? I'm curious.
Yes. So I think it's probably, my guess is very different from a lot of people you have on your podcast. So Dreamers and Doers, which is the name of my community, started 10 years ago. And it actually first started offline, and it was a very happy accident. So I myself, I wasn't a digital native, other than maybe on a personal level, but I had worked in finance. I had worked at a few early stage companies and found myself being in the early stages of being a founder for the very first time. And I quickly realized that nothing I had done before prepared me for this quite treacherous journey of having to figure out everything on your own, having existential fears. So as I was doing that, and as my friends and family who weren't entrepreneurs couldn't relate, they constantly were like, when are you going to get a real job again? Why are you working all the time? What are you working on anyhow? I found my people, which were other entrepreneurial women. And at that time, not digital at all. What we did is we met up over brunch. And everything changed from that moment onwards. Once I found my people and once we got to connect and we got to talk about our businesses, we got to support ourselves through our struggles. It was the one thing I couldn't stop working on, but it was all offline. So it was weekend brunches, and it grew organically from 2 to 4 to 10. And I even had people at the time say like, oh, you're working on these like business ideas, but why don't you work on this community instead? And I was like, no, you're crazy. It's a community. It's not a business. And then lo and behold, a year into like not being able to stop working on Dreamers and Doers, while on the flip side, the business ideas I was working on, I kept changing them. I couldn't stick to them. I decided to go all in. And that's when we added the digital component, very clumsily, admittedly. We added initially like a Facebook group, and then we tried to figure out how to monetize. And this was like so long before communities and monetized communities were a thing. So that's how we started. Not very strategic in the early days, but it was a very happy accident that has led us to where we are today. And I'll quickly also add, while our extended community has at this point over 35,000 women and consists of a jobs platform, our core community is closer to 700 to 800. And that's like our paid community. That's where we spend the majority of our time. 99% of our time we spend on our paid and slightly smaller community.
I love it. Thank you for that context. I love that origin story, because that's where real connections happen, is often in person, right? And you got to know exactly who these women were and the language that they spoke, and that you were just like them. I think that's really important. This is why I always try to encourage people to go out and meet people in person. It was hard to do during the pandemic, of course, but that's where a lot of my mastermind friends have come from, who I've been with for a decade now. And there's just something magical that happens. And actually, for a while, I was actually hosting San Diego, which is where I'm from, an entrepreneurial meetup downtown once a month. And just like you said, it's like it started out with 10 people, then it was like 30 people. And this was a free thing, but it just, I think, proves how much we want to feel like we belong to something. And especially as an entrepreneur, I mean, you know this, your people know this, my people know this. It's a very lonely place sometimes to be an entrepreneur. And I mean, your parents seemed like they were a little bit more traditional, similar to mine, questioning your decisions to go into entrepreneurship, like especially with the Asian descendant background. That's very common, like be a doctor, be a lawyer, like do all these things. So when you find your people, you stick with them. And then bringing that online, I think, was really smart. And I'm curious, the core group that you have, I believe it's hosted on Circle, is it not?
Yes. And that's how I discovered you first. So yes, we were on Facebook, and for the longest time, we wanted to switch, especially being a premium community. It just wasn't a good look being on Facebook, and the functionality were like giving the whole team like community PTSD for like so many reasons. And then we kept exploring all the platforms, and because we wanted to only switch if it was really, if the juice was going to be worth the squeeze. And then once we found Circle, we know it was it. And then we just waited till they launched a few additional things and then switched over and have never looked back.
I'm just going to tell you, like, sell me. I'm not a woman, so I probably wouldn't make sense for your community, but sell me your course. How do you position it? How do you position your community? What are the things that you offer? And how do you convince a person who may be just getting introduced to you and your brand, this idea of what is behind this paywall and Dreams and Doers? I know it's amazing, but why don't you sell it to us and tell us like the benefits of it?
I'm super excited to do this. And I'll also give the fun caveat that we actually never sell. I'm really proud in some ways. And I mean, there's no right or wrong, but like the fiber of our community is that we really invest in our members and the experience. And then the members are the people who sell for us, because curation is actually a really big part of us. So if we got all the wrong people, that would be, I mean, first of all, they wouldn't get accepted, but that also wouldn't be in our interest. So it's kind of like a fun thing to mention. And I'm happy to dive in more like how we do that and what we don't do. But what is Dreamers and Doers? So Dreamers and Doers is, we like saying, an award-winning community and PR team that amplifies extraordinary women entrepreneurs and leaders. And we stand out that we have this really curated process where, like, if you join, you will find your people. You have this really high hit ratio of finding very high caliber, impressive and values-driven women, where 1 + 1 can equal 100, right? Like if you're in the room with the right people and you have the right infrastructure, so much is possible. And that's what we make possible with the community. The right people are in the room and you have all the different ways to connect with them and amplify each other. On purpose, we curate also for diversity, because so we don't have an industry or stage focus necessarily, because we find that as an entrepreneur, like the questions and the needs that you have can evolve so much. So just having a community that supports that is really crucial. And then a core part of what we do is PR, because we've for better or worse, found that sometimes as a woman, needing external validation can be more important than for most men in terms of like, if you want to get investors, partners, sometimes even believing in yourself, like just that external validation makes an exponential difference for women. So we've seen that just level the playing field on a micro level on women individually, but we also highly invest in that because we think it creates systemic change. By changing who and what gets portrayed in the media, we are rewriting the future. So that's why when someone joins as a member, you get PR for a fraction of the price than it would be for a PR agency. And oftentimes you pay multiple thousands of dollars for a PR agency with results. So for us, it's like high results and low cost. So super high ROI. In terms of our end community.
Yeah, I mean, that's almost, even for just the PR part alone is almost like a no-brainer, not to mention the community and being in the right room with the right women. Can you get more specific about the PR stuff? If you're willing to do so, this might be proprietary, so you don't have to, but what, as a...
I'm thrilled to do it.
Tell me about what that exactly means.
So we take an agile approach in the sense that what we don't offer is like, we won't go out for you and pitch a specific story to a bunch of different outlets. There is a lot of value in that. It's also like highly costly and also questionable how many results you get. What we do is we take a streamlined approach. So we have existing relationships to very high caliber partners ranging from NASDAQ to Thrive to Blocker to Create and Cultivate and various others. And we highly invest in these relationships, and we will do a mix of either roundup articles. So we'll do topics that someone can contribute to, and usually you'll have a called 95% chance that you will be featured if you contribute. Then we have a staff in-house that's like the former head editor of The Muse and a lot of others who will do quality control, who will edit it, will make sure that everything is on point that you've mentioned, and then you'll get featured, and then you have this opportunity to share the article. We'll also create personalized images. You can include the logos on your website. It just really helps for momentum, creating social proof, and a lot of different things. And
that's wonderful.
Not as much, but we also do a few individual spotlights. That's part of it. But in addition, so that's like the core of what we call a PR hype machine. But we also source podcast opportunities, we source speaking opportunities, and various others. Like we go through the TEDx website, do all the heavy lifting. So all of that also is part of what we offer.
Wow, that's an amazing service to offer for sure. That sounds great. While we're here, can you just tell everybody where to go and check out Dreamers and Doers really quick in case they're curious?
Yes. So it's our website, which is Dreamers Doers. So there's not an and, just dreamersdoers.com. That's our website. You'll find all the info. We accept members once a quarter, and we'd be so honored to receive an application if this sounds aligned to you.
That's awesome. So we have an application for our higher level community, SPI Pro. Tell me about you mentioned it a little bit, right? It sort of filters and makes sure the right people are in there. How did you define what the right people is in your application process or for your application process? Tell me about that.
So for us, it's individuals that can contribute and individuals that want to contribute. And that's where the impressive and values aligned comes in, right? So we take a human first approach in our curation. So we oftentimes, because the curation part is one of the hardest things we do, but also the most important things. So real talk, sometimes we go in and be like, oh, should we evolve this process, make it simpler? Should we just look at number of years of experience or, total amount of revenue? But we keep coming back to like looking at each individual application. So once we accepted the youngest member ever, and she was 20 at that time, but when she had her first 7-figure business when she was 18. Or another example is a founder who's very, very early stage in her skincare line, but her last company had $100 million valuation. So we really take that approach of like, do they have some sort of experience where they can actually help others, and they aren't, just graduated and have no business experience. And the other part is like, do they actually want to contribute? Because someone might be so impressive on paper, but if they just want to take, right, they wouldn't be a good fit. So depending on the person and depending on what they write, because we have our questions really, like we've teased them out to kind of like have people open up, and also the questions asked, like, in what ways are you going to contribute? So we can kind of, like the process itself, the application itself weeds out a lot of people. But if we kind of see a few red flags, we might reach out to someone who's a mutual connection for a reference. So we do that on a case-by-case basis as well.
That's super helpful. When a person is accepted, how are you moving forward from there? Is there any sort of, okay, now it's up to them whether or not they want to continue forward, or have they already paid prior to the application and they get a refund? Like, what are the mechanics of that?
we tell everyone like once you apply, like you're committed essentially, and then you submit your payment info as part of the application. And they don't get charged as part of the application, but we make it very clear that once they get accepted, that day they get charged. And the thing is like, I think if we had a lower price point, maybe we'd do it differently, but like we want people who are committed, right? So that helps us just like suss out people who are serious versus like, oh, maybe I want to try it out. It's like, like the application in itself actually takes quite a time to fill out. So we like just setting it up that way. And also sometimes people will not submit payment. And I'd say 80% or 90% of the people who don't submit payment are also the people who will never submit payment.
That's really smart. I really like that.
And I also think people who don't submit payment, like if they do end up joining, they just aren't going to be as committed to the community and to fellow members. So it just might not be the right time for them or not the right community.
You do need to have a person have some skin in the game in order to actually contribute and feel like, there's something at stake there even. So I think that's really smart. What is the price point of the community at this point?
So we charge quarterly or annually, and it's either $675 per quarter or $2,250 per year. And it's about to increase. So we we always increase it for new members as we add to our offering. So that's happening after the next quarter.
We've done the same thing.
So when anytime you want to apply, just know that at some point it will increase. So whatever price you're seeing right now, you get to lock that in. So don't wait too long if you know that this is the right thing for you.
Wonderful. Person applies, they get in, they get charged, they're happy, they're excited. How do you welcome new members in? You bring people in per quarter. I'm curious to know how you manage that and get people excited and essentially train them to start engaging right away. Tell us what the onboarding process is like.
So first, in my mind, the onboarding starts with them coming on our website, them looking at the application and then filling out the application. So that's why we kind of designed the application where we actually have them opt into our values. And then you can see drop-offs. Some people are probably like, oh, this is silly, or this is not my jam, right? And it helps us first of all, one and the same person might behave differently in our community because we structured it that way. And these are people that might not be a good fit. So onboarding starts before they even get accepted. Then we welcome them. And like many other communities, we obviously have an onboarding flow that shares with them what our core offerings are. We always offer welcome calls, a total of 2 per quarter. And it's just 2 different opportunities to join that involves an overview as well as a way to get to know them, each other. And those are the core parts. And then we have a series of ongoing events that we kind of schedule in a way that they can join them short after they have joined. And then we also do check-in emails, because we are a high-touch community, all members have access to our membership concierge, who's a serial founder who's raised capital. So a very high caliber person that they have access to anytime one-on-one to support them. So we also make sure that they get those invites to connect with our membership concierge during that beginning phase and throughout their journey.
That's wonderful. You just mentioned events. What kind of events do you host in there? And how do you get people to show up for them? I'm curious.
Yes. So we host roughly close to 100 per year, and it's a mix of either educational or connection focused. And we also do annual surveys. So with the annual survey, we can see we ask people how many events have you actually attended? And the truth is that, and I would guess that this is applicable to many communities, but it's only a certain percentage of members that actually attend. And I think especially for a demographic like ours, that's just so busy. You're a founder, you're a woman on average, and maybe this is biased, but I guess we all are biased. But if you have kids and all of that, you just have a lot of demands on your time. So people just don't have that much time for events. And I think it's for every community, it's helpful to include events because it helps give them the opportunity to join and helps them maybe in some ways also see the value for the price. But I would it's never a goal of ours to be all our members have to attend all these events, because we know that they get so much value also from the PR, so much value from our curated resources that, they do join events, but it's not core KPI where we're we need to have 80% of our members join all the events. Yeah, but the mix would be, to answer the question, educational, and we only feature members for the educational events. So it's a perk to our members that they get to be featured. And for the connection events, we like using a women-founded company called Gather Round, which is really fantastic. And another, not only women-founded, but member company is called Orbit, ORBIIT, which is a software that allows you to connect members one-on-one for 30 minutes once a month or however often you want.
Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you for those resources. The event thing is interesting in our community as well, because like you, I mean, we have a worldwide audience. Everybody's busy. They're founders, entrepreneurs as well. So we try to focus on what they're going to learn and what they're going to take away from that moment. And if they happen to be able to come live, that's just kind of like a bonus versus like we used to do, here's a live event, like don't miss it. And people would miss it and just be like, oh, well, I'm not getting value here because I missed the thing. When really it's still massively valuable even after the fact. So we've been trying to reposition that, and that's been working really well for us.
Framing is so important, like how you frame anything, right? Like you can turn a bug into a feature, right? You can make it them feel bad for not having joined, or you can like reword it slightly, reposition it. And I think for communities, nearly more than anything, like the framing can make such a difference in terms of like the value that's perceived.
For sure. I do want to get into how you sell without selling, but before we get into that, because that sounds very amazing, I'd love to know what maybe some of the growing pains have been. Every community starts somewhere, and as they grow, you continue to uncover new challenges and new obstacles. What has been a hard thing as you've grown this community that you've learned to figure out, or maybe are still in the middle of?
Yeah, so we've been doing this for 10 years, and I'd say the most excruciating pain was in the early years, oftentimes when I was like a one-woman show and just like working nonstop and also not trusting my gut enough. And also, you know, for the first 2 years, we didn't monetize, and so burned through a lot of savings. So you can imagine that was painful. And there, in the early days, I would like try to get a lot of input from community members. And obviously I still do. The reason I've dedicated my life to this community is because I, you know, so deeply care about the women in our community. But in the early days, I would like try to like, you know, do polls or like do these dinners and try to get input. And then the input would just be all over the place. Or we'd ask concrete questions like, oh, should we monetize? Would you pay for this? And they'd be like, yes, you should. And I'd pay $1. And then, so I realized like the hard way where like I have a good gut, right? Like otherwise I wouldn't be doing this in the first place. And to actually not listen as much to what other people are thinking. And that includes both community members as well as like other stakeholders, and just to go more on my whim, even if it's the exact opposite of what some other people are thinking. And I think that made such a difference to just be like more unapologetic. And then also obviously the more like we became sustainable, we had recurring revenue, we more than cover our costs, being able to hire a team, like that made such a difference. Now the problems look different. Now the problems are like scaling, training, and all of that. But I would say it was more painful in the early days for me personally.
What was one example of one of those things that people were saying or perhaps wanted, but you went with your gut instead?
So many things. Or one thing was conferences. Everyone was always like, oh, you should do a conference. And that was more like a personal decision, because I think as we build a company, if it's a company or community, like we in some ways like have so many options, so many decisions we can make for ourselves. And it's in some ways like this blessing, but in other ways also really hard. And some of these ideas could be great in terms of like make great business sense, but I think it needs to make sense to you as the founder, as the leader, first and foremost, right? So even though maybe we could have made a lot of money with conferences, like it's not something that excites me personally. I think, yeah, so it's not just even strategically does this make sense, but like, do I actually want to do this? Because if I don't want to do this, I'm not going to excel at this, or I don't want to continue doing this. And yeah, so we didn't do that. And for better or worse, like we've actually, last year it started, like been getting acquisition offers. And I've built the company in a way where like, I'm like, I really like this company. I like the people I work with. I love our members. I love how I've structured this, that I didn't continue pursuing the acquisitions or the offers that we got. That can potentially be a downside. Like if you build a company you love so much, you might get to a point where you're like, I don't actually want to sell it, but I think it's a good problem to have.
Gesche, thank you for that honesty and vulnerability there. Let's talk about selling into this community. It's obviously doing very well. How are you bringing new people in? And you had mentioned earlier, you're doing it without even being pitchy or selly. Tell us a story there. How does that work?
And I think that also goes back to like, what is right for you? Like other people might love selling, and who knows, maybe I will start another company that's much more selling focused. Like that selling in itself isn't necessarily wrong at all. But I think just thinking about like what's the ethos of a community and what reflects that in terms of like infrastructure as well as like quote unquote marketing. So for us, because we're such a high touch community, like we invest so much in the experience. And it's also not something where like, because it's, you know, a relatively large investment that someone might, you know, maybe see an ad for and be like, oh, I'm going to apply. like people will want to do their due diligence, and more so they want to hear from people they trust why they should join. So when people apply and we ask them like, how did you find out about it? Most often what we'll hear is like, oh, I heard about it for like years for us. Because let's say we didn't do that. We just focus on ads. Like people probably wouldn't apply, or the wrong people would apply. So for us, like, because we care about people who want to be there, who are values aligned, like that is the right approach. And then there's a few other organic things that we do that I always recommend other communities to do, where it's like, because we are a curated community, members are proud to list it on their LinkedIn. Right? So LinkedIn is our biggest source of our platform where people find us. But members obviously wouldn't list it if they weren't proud, right? But like we do create the infrastructure where like we create, a page that explains how they can add it and why they would add it. So we make it easy for them. But it's our members who decide to want to show it off.
That's amazing. Thank you for that. I am curious, when you have these quarterly promotions, or quarterly sort of groups of people who come in, how are you... Maybe you're not necessarily selling, but you are priming people in some way? Like, do they get on a wait list in between and then you kind of let them know that the doors are opening? Can you offer a little bit more insight into that?
So they can apply anytime. So we don't close applications, but we do obviously receive, like you have to apply by a certain deadline to be able to be included for a certain cohort, and also to secure certain pricing if we are increasing pricing shortly. And we do receive most applications like 2 weeks leading up to the deadline. It seems to be the standard for most communities who have a similar model. We don't we're just literally, like for the very first time ever, we posted something on Instagram like, oh, deadline in 2 days. And we did something on LinkedIn, but we hadn't done that prior, but we probably should. So we will do that going forward. One thing we do is that we let our members know that the deadline is coming up, and we have a referral form. So while anyone can apply on the website, like obviously if someone gets referred from an existing member, we give it a lot more weight. So current members are primed that it's coming up. And we will soon be, mentioning it a little bit more in our external channels, which would be a good best practice to have.
That's really great. As we finish up here, Gesche, again, thank you so much for this. This is super insightful, and I even have some new ideas that I'm going to take to my team as well, thanks to you.
I'm excited to hear.
What would be the one piece of advice you would offer for brand new community creators if you want to tap into what it was like, again, when you first started? And even though it was in person, there are some challenges during that time. And there's a lot of limiting beliefs that a person might have when they're about to bring their people together into a community. What advice would you offer somebody who might be struggling with a lot of those struggles at the start there?
To really realize that there isn't necessarily a right or wrong answer, and to invest in developing your own compass. For example, we have this long curation process, but that just works for us. Like I would actually highly discourage it for many other communities. So rather than focusing on this one tactical thing that this one community that seems successful did, who are you as a person? Why are you doing this in the first place? Do you even want to be doing this in the first place? What would mean success for you? What would mean failure? Because there is even a scenario where on paper you do really well, but you hate your life, right? And to me, at least, that is not success. So really sussing that out early on, because I can't tell you how much time I wasted in the early days questioning or looking at what is the right thing to do? What should I do? If I just been what do I want? What downsides am I okay with? Right. In the early days, people would nearly devalue me because I hadn't raised capital, because I didn't do all these things. And then until I myself then also embrace it, I'm we got opportunities to raise capital. We didn't want to. And yes, maybe in some rooms I will be not the coolest person. I'm totally okay with that. And now a lot of companies that had raised a lot at the time aren't around anymore because, they couldn't hit milestones and then, didn't have a runway. So I think it's really developing your inner compass. And there's so many ways to do it, but in a really tactical level, I do love journaling and just literally at the end of the day being how do I feel? And just you'll notice certain things of hey, I actually don't like managing people, or hey, I really don't like conferences, whatever your things might be. But I think being really disciplined about that, will just really is lead to exponential success, whatever success means for you. And I feel we don't invest enough in that.
I love that. That's so key. You had mentioned some people maybe not wanting to build a big team. When did your team, or when did you start building a team in this process, and what does that look like now?
So in the early days, I was probably too lean, but I think it's really hard to exactly define what's too lean, what's you always kind of adjust and course correct. The hardest hires for me were community hires especially in our case, because we care so much about them being high touch, being relatable, being like high caliber, also wanting to stay with the community. And I think people underestimate how emotionally draining it is to run a community. So people we had like wouldn't last. And it's just like, was a really, really hard hire. And I think also because I essentially was the key community person originally, it was hard to essentially like replace me. But that was just really hard. My first hire, who's been, I'm really proud to say, with the company for over 5 years, was my right hand, Hannah, who is amazing. And I think just like, what are the tasks that you can like delegate early on, I think are super important to figure out. And I spent a lot of time training her in the early days. It was painful in the early days, but it's one of the best investments I've ever made. Because she's just so familiar with the company. She's also so committed. And one thing we do now, and it's also has to do with like the type of company you want to build, but the one thing I'm hyper optimizing for is long-term fit. Like, oh, if this person could do a better job short term, like I'm like, well, this person wants to stay. I don't want to train someone up and then they leave. So that's what we've optimized for, and coverage of that multiple people can cover multiple roles. And it's just been so wonderful to have this company that's so committed, that loves working so much for this company, and that, we'll be with this company for a really long time. And one of my secrets that I'm happy to share is it's called Magical Teams, which is actually one of our member companies, but they essentially have made hiring, like we press the easy button on hiring. Anytime we need to hire someone, we work through them. And it's just been so fun because they basically are experts in hiring. They run the entire process. It costs less than if I would have run it myself. And it's, we love working with them for hiring and ongoing support.
Magical Teams was the name of it?
They're so good.
Magical Teams. I love how you're also just amplifying your own members in that way. That's really key, and it just shows how much you care about your people, and that's been throughout this entire process and throughout this entire interview today. So, Gesche, thank you so much for this very insightful information and your energy. If you could tell people one more time where they can go to get access to your community and you on social, perhaps, if you'd like to connect with them there, tell us all the things.
Yes. So dreamersdoers.com is the website. We have our membership that you can obviously apply for, but we also have a monthly newsletter called The Digest that you'll find, and it's free, and we get a wonderful feedback on that. So we'd be super excited to welcome you to either. And then me personally, I am most active on Instagram, where I share a little too much real talk. So if you enjoy that, you can find me there at Gesche Haas. Yes, so excited to be here.
We appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed that interview with Gesche Haas. Again, you can find her at dreamersdoers.com. She's incredible. And she first of all, Gesche, thank you so much for coming on, and congratulations to you and your success. And speaking of success, I want you, the listener, to be successful with communities as well. And that's why in May of 2023, we're dedicating a lot of effort into helping you build your community. We have a challenge. It's coming out very soon. If not already, you can find it at smartpassiveincome.com/community challenge. Again, smartpassiveincome.com/community challenge. Go there. You can read all about how exactly we're going to walk you through the process of getting your community started, and that's in partnership with Circle, and it's going to be an amazing opportunity for you to finally get this going mid-year or end of year or beginning of next year, whatever you're listening to this. smartpassiveincome.com/community challenge. We're going to have a blast. Thank you so much for listening. If you want the show notes and all the links mentioned here today in this episode with Gesche, all you have to do is go to smartpassiveincome.com/session677, and you'll find a link to the challenge there as well. Again, one more time, smartpassiveincome.com/community challenge. No spaces, no dashes. That's it. I appreciate you. Good luck. And we'll see you in the challenge. It's going to be a load of fun. Cheers. Oh, and it's free. Yeah, that's it. Thank you so much for listening to the Smart Passive Income podcast at smartpassiveincome.com. I'm your host, Pat Flynn. Sound editing by Duncan Brown. Our senior producer is David Grabowski, and our executive producer is Matt Gartland. The Smart Passive Income podcast is a production of SPI Media and a proud member of the Entrepreneur Podcast Network. Catch you next week. I get it. You want to grow your business, but selling at scale feels overwhelming. You're drowning in complicated funnels, creating different lead magnets, or constantly posting on social media. And that gets exhausting fast, especially when you're trying to sell to hundreds or thousands of people. But what if you could sell at scale with a simple, powerful quiz? A Score app quiz or assessment asks your audience key questions and gives them instant personalized results based on their answers. Your audience gets to know where they are now and shows them the steps they need to hit their goals. You can set up a quiz in minutes using Score app's templates and have a powerful lead magnet that'll do the selling for you. The best part is your audience actually wants to take this quiz, and you build huge amounts of trust before you even make a single offer. No hard sales, no chasing leads, just value at scale. Get 50% off the first 3 months using the discount code SPI. Just head to scoreapp.com/SPI. Again, that's scoreapp.com/SPI. Hey, fellow podcaster, does this sound like something you've experienced? You record your podcast episode on one platform, download the files, edit in another app, then fire up a different tool just to create these social clips? Well, it can be clunky, time-consuming, and frankly overwhelming, especially for creators trying to grow. And that's why I'm excited to tell you about Riverside. Riverside is the all-in-one platform. Record, edit, and repurpose your podcast content all in one place. You just log in, record with your guests no matter where you are in the world, and just like that, studio-quality audio and high-resolution video. We use Riverside here at SPI as well now. With built-in AI, I can automatically clean up my audio, saving myself so much editing time, and it can even auto-generate clips to make promoting the show a breeze. And with Magic Clips, I can grab the best moments and repurpose them as short-form video, perfect for YouTube Shorts, TikTok, or Instagram, without re-recording a thing. So if you're tired of juggling tools and want a faster, simpler way to create and scale your content, it's time to try Riverside, built by creators for creators. Just go to smartpassiveincome.com/Riverside and use code SMART to get 1 month free on the Pro plan. That's smartpassiveincome.com/Riverside, promo code SMART.